What's up, everybody?
What is going on?
Happy, what day is it?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, hump day, let's go.
Mike.
All right, we are
Everyone
back
alive.
at you.
I know, right? Everyone defrosted from that crazy storm that just hit through.
Man, there's still snow outside for us.
It's crazy. We're in Texas, guys, and there's snow on the ground. It's not a good thing.
It's not right. It's not supposed to happen that way.
Seriously.
Man, well excited to come back with you, going through really how do we get financially free, right? It is still January, still the new year. If you have not gotten goals together on how to get your finances together, this is where we come in.
Exactly. Yep.
Giving you an actionable steps in how to do this, right? So we kicked off last time really talking about, what is this definition of financially free, kind of sharing a little bit of our story, right? I mean, Laura and I, we were waiting tables. She had 3 jobs, I had 2 jobs, working for the man. We hadn't started our own business yet. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're like, whoa, right? We got to get this asset stuff together. We gotta get some passive income here so we can retire early.
Yeah, we did not have that golden spoon in our mouths. We started very poor and on our own and had to struggle, I think, initially to get through it all. But I think that this is why we do these calls, because we really know that wealth is for everybody, but a lot of times people aren't educated on it, and so they don't know how to start. And so this is why we're here. We're here to help you get started. We're here to nudge you a little bit in the right direction so you kind of have an awareness of what to do. Because I think that's where we didn't know. We didn't know where to start. And so, yeah, we are super hopeful we can give you some golden nuggets today to get you going on your path.
Absolutely. So let's kick right off into this. We'll go for maybe about 30 minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to throw it into the chat there, and we can hit those while we're going through or at the end. Either one is just fine. So kicking this off, right? We're talking about financial freedom, and what does this actually mean? I really like this definition I'm going to throw up here on the screen for you all. It's this definition of wealth. Wealth is a person's ability to survive for so many days forward, or if I stop working today, how long could I survive? Right? Today's, the end of the month. If I quit my job, Laura quit her job, I could, right, pay for the end of this month. What about next month? Could I make the mortgage or the rent payment next month? Could I pay the bills next month? Could I go to the grocery store, get all that stuff together, right? How many months could I do that for? And if you could answer that question, you could say with confidence, I could live forever. I could live indefinitely. I can keep going with my bills and my expenses until I die, and then still have that money coming in that I can hand off to my kids and have generational wealth and have legacy. That's what we're talking about here. To kind of simplify it, it's really, if you have $5,000 a month of expenses, how do you get more than $5,000 a month of passive income? We all work, right? We have jobs, and that's active income. You are going and you are, working for some company. Maybe it's your own company, maybe it's somebody else, but you're getting a paycheck and you're trading 1-to-1 your time per unit for money, right? Totally fine to do. There's nothing wrong with active income. But if you only have active income and you have no passive income, that is a big problem. That is what most the country has, right? They have no actionable plan for this. So we're talking about a plan.
Well, I think a lot of times people don't even know that there is another option. I can speak for myself. When we first started getting in this, when I had 3 jobs, I thought that was just what I had to do. And we literally barely made it each month, even on 3 jobs. And so I literally thought that's the quote unquote American dream. You just hustle and grind for the rest of your life until you retire. That was the whole point of life, right? And so that is not. There's many other options that you can take. And to be honest, it's actually really fun once you get to a point where you have that excess income and you're purchasing these assets for not just you, it's for your family. And so, yeah, it's really exciting. So I'm excited to help teach you guys that other path.
So a lot of people don't believe that they can do it, right? A lot of people don't think that you can get to financial freedom. It took Laura and myself 8 years, maybe 7-8 years. The first time we had a bunch of rental properties, got to $10,000 a month in passive income, exceeded our expenses, and then we looked at each other and said, "Babe, should we stop working? Should we stop having the active income and just relax. And we were still in our 30s. We're like, no, man, what else are we gonna do? Like, but to have that option, man, to have that option is awesome. The pressure off of your shoulders to know if my kids got sick, if my parents got dementia, like I could stop. I could stop for a year, I could stop for 5 years, and all of my bills would be covered. But I think that there's a lot going on in society and culture that tells you if you have a lot of money that you're not a good human, that you're doing things wrong, right? What about this one? Money is the root of all
Evil.
right? Come on now, that's not true.
Yeah.
But people believe that. They're taught that.
It's the love of money is the root of all evil, not money itself.
Yeah.
Money is not inherently good or inherently bad. And I think a lot of people think that it is. It's a tool is really what it is. And you use that tool. You could use that tool for good or bad, just like you can use a hammer for good and a hammer for bad. But a hammer itself is not inherently good or bad. You can use it towards something good or bad. And so, that's such a falsified. I can't stand when people use that. That's not what it's meant toward.
Right.
It's the love of money.
Yeah. I mean, money, it's everywhere. It's just value, right? You're trading value. And to me, it's almost like oxygen because it's literally everything. It's everywhere you go. There's oxygen, right? And it's free for the grabbing. Anybody can inhale as much oxygen as you want. Like, it's kind of the same with money. It is literally everywhere you go. When you step outside, right, there's landscaping there. Somebody you're paying to do that, right? You have the opportunity to make money there. There's their car, there's gas, there's insurance, there's everything is tied to money, and the opportunity is everywhere, right? There is no limit to what you can do. Just because you have such and such kind of job doesn't mean that you can't have side hustles, you can't have investments, you can't have an astronomical amount of money if you choose. You can have as much money as you want, just like you can have as much air as you want to breathe. So, man, let's get there, right? Because sometimes you just got to overcome that hurdle. And I think that we are here to give you very practical steps on how to do this. And coming from the perspective that we were poor and broke and had a very small budget when we first had our babies, and like just know how hard it is to be young parents with jobs that don't pay much and working 2 or 3 jobs a piece and like struggling to save $500 a month, right? And like saving nothing, investing none of that kind of stuff. So we wanted to have some actionable items for you so that you can just naturally build on this. And where we start is with a budget, right?
You said the word.
It's almost like a 4-letter word, right? Like,
word.
Man, it's unfortunate because, it is such the foundation for investing. Everyone wants to hear about what are the cool, fancy ways to invest. What's my return on investment? Should I get into stocks or bonds or crypto, or maybe I should get in apartment syndications? Man, none of that stuff matters if you don't have any money. You have to have money to invest. In order to have money, you have to have savings. And so therefore you have to have a budget. It's just the basic foundations of this. And we're going to come at this for you as kindergarten level as possible. And we literally teach our children this. And our children have already bought their first rental property. It was actually like 2 years ago. And stable asset, the cash flows, and they're building good wealth through that. And that's their first investment, and they're continuing to save. They have a budget. We have pretty much a variation of this program that we implement for them. So I say that because anyone can do it, right? There's nothing fancy, sophisticated, advanced that we're going to be talking about. It's literally just save some freaking money, learn how to invest it, and then invest it, right?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It's self-control, to be completely honest with you. It's a lot of self-control. I think a lot of people think if they have an extra $200-300 a month that, oh great, that's $200-300, I'm gonna go shopping, or I'm gonna go spend it on something. And that's not the case. That $200-300 needs to be placed somewhere in an account where you're not gonna touch, because you gotta honestly retrain your mind to think that that's your future self's money. It's not even your money right now. That's not yours. And so you don't want to pretty much go in there and harm your future self is really what it is. And so that's the frustrating part about it, is the self-control. So if you do have that extra money each month, knowing that you're storing that away for your future self, to be honest, that was kind of a relief for us. Like, I loved knowing that I was preparing my future for our family. And so I almost felt guilty if I went in and I touched that money. It was almost like, wow, I'm like sabotaging my own self. And so I think that it was almost like and I say this a lot, like a mental switch. You have to have a mental switch in your mind toward money. And it's more ways than one. The first one we already talked about was not thinking that money is evil. And I think that that was something that I had to overcome because I thought anyone who had money was evil. Like they must have done something bad and they're a selfish person and they just have all this money. But that's not the case. I think having more money makes you more of what you already are. So if you are a huge jerk, then a lot of money is probably going to make you more of a jerk. But if you're a kind-hearted, genuine person, I do think that money makes you more of that because you're able to give and help your community. So don't consider it evil and don't consider it bad.
Definitely not bad. So let's get into some practical steps here, right? We're talking about a budget today. And so we've used several different budgeting apps. The one that Laura and I first started with when we were getting into this was the Every Dollar app. And so you can use whatever app you like. But here's kind of the premise on it. I do strongly feel that you should pay for one of these apps. They a lot of times have free versions that you can go in and you have to like manually type in every single expense. And so we're like, we're going to do this. And we did it for like 2 weeks. And you go in and you're like, Starbucks, 4.72. And then you go to the next one down the bank account. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is taking me 45 minutes a week to input these stinking things.
Yeah.
So pay the $100 a year, whatever it costs, sync it to your bank and literally just have it go. And then you can build out categories and you can start saying, okay, here's food, here's all the different things in there. And then you can just do a weekly reconcile. And we got together and we had like a Sunday meeting and it was like, all right, it wasn't official or anything, but we sit on the couch. Here's what we spent. Here's what's left in the budget. And man, it sucks.
It was super awkward, I gotta admit.
But it's just what you gotta do.
It's what you have to do.
You know, it's not a forever thing, but you have to get a foundation laid and then you can go from there. There's a lot more fun things that are in the future, but you gotta really get through the crappy stuff. So I would say this, when you start your budget, right, go in, sync it to your bank. Don't just start with today and move forward. Actually go back in time, at least the last 90 days. That way it gives you a track record of here's my normal. Because it'll probably realistically take you about 6 months to figure out what is your normal. Like every single month, here's what we're roughly spending up and down on groceries and gas and travel, and then there's a vacation in there, so it threw everything off. When you have a track record of several months, it'll be much, much easier to kind of organize the budget. So start with going back in time. And then really, I think of it in this way. A lot of people focus so much on the income, right? The keeping up with the Joneses. How much money am I making? A lot of times I think of a family just like a business, right? A good business should have a net profit. So you have your income minus your expenses equals your net profit, right? And if your business had zero net profit, you'd be like, man, I just wasting my time. I spent this whole year, let's just say you had your own small business and you had $0 in profit at the end of the year. You'd be like, what's the point of this? Should I even do this next year? No. What about that for your family? If you considered your family like its own little business, it becomes less about how much money am I making. If I said myself and Laura, we have this kind of salary, we're each making $100,000, right? That's how people compare themselves, how they're doing in society. Oh, I have this kind of job, I'm climbing the corporate ladder, I just got a raise. Man, you're what? Your income doesn't really matter. It's only one part of the equation. Or people look at their expenses. What kind of trips do I get to take? Did I get to buy the new boat? My neighbor got a new RV, right? My girlfriend, she's got a new Louis Vuitton bag, right? They're looking at expenses and comparing expenses to expenses. Man, expenses don't matter. Income doesn't matter. You know what matters is the net profit. If you treat your family like a business, it doesn't matter what the business's expenses are. It matters what the business's net profit is. And your net profit as a family is just like your savings account. You have to be saving every single month. You need to show a certain percentage of your income is being saved. That's how you analyze a business, right? What percent of this net profit are they taking home? It's really the same thing for your family. And so as we're talking about budgeting here, everything goes back to the bottom line, right? Just think of it for your family just like a business. You should push to get higher income. You should push to lower expenses, but that's not it. In our culture, that's how people compare themselves, right? I'm making six figures. I'm making 250 grand. I bought this boat. Totally irrelevant, right? What you should be looking at is, hey, I'm saving 20% of my income. That's a number to be proud of, right? Not a boat, not the trip. How much of your income are you investing? That's a statistic. That's a number to be proud of. So I just kind of wanted to put that in there for you as we start talking about budgeting, that really this is the whole point, is to get to, at the end of the month or at the end of the year, I have saved this money, because you cannot push that money forward. You cannot do anything cool. You cannot compound interest. You cannot invest unless you have something to start with, right? So it all comes back to your family profit. So here is a few budgeting apps. And again, you can choose whatever you like. I'm highlight a couple on here because Laura and I personally did use the Every Dollar app. That was good. I also want to highlight this Honeydew. It may be applicable to some people who have separate accounts, and so you can, maybe you're a married couple that has separate accounts, but you can have a shared savings account. You can have shared goals and then separate stuff. So that might be something that is applicable to people as well. So let's get into some of the action items here, right? You download the app, you get your 60, 90 days in there, and then you kind of need to figure out what is your normal, so that way you can really massage this and make it work. So here are a few different ideas as far as categories. And you could break this into, here's what I'm expecting for housing, right? I'm looking at housing roughly 25 to 30% of my income. Same with my transportation, my food, utilities, all those kind of things. This is a great generalized kind of thing if, let's just say, you happen to be just turning 18 and you're moving out into your first apartment, right? Like, you're just building your budget. It's a little bit impractical if you already have all these expenses and it's like, well, I can't just cut these things. I'm already paying for them, right? Like, it's not in proportion. So that's not actually kind of real life, right? I think that this slide right here may be closer to real life and a real principle that you can use and just kind of simplify things, your needs, your wants, and then for your savings. So if you took things super simple in this principle and you said, I want to set aside 50% of my income after taxes for the thing that are needs, right? 50% there. Then perhaps the next thing is I want to hit my wants. There's definitely things that I want. I want to have fun. I want to do these different things. I want to get new clothes. Perhaps 30% of my income I can set aside towards wants. And then the most important part, right? What we are talking about is the savings, the family profit. You need to set aside at least 20%. The wealthiest people throughout history have set aside and saved to invest at minimum 40% of their income. Now you might say, hey, they're multimillionaires. That's easy for them to do. You get a lot of expenses when you get a lot of money, right? So it is for everyone. If you can't do it when you're making a little bit of money, then you're not going to do it when you're making 200,000 or making 2 million. The principle is pretty the same. So I think I like this because it's a very easy kind of thing to look at. 50, 30, and 20.
I was just going to say, I love talking about this specifically because I think people can tend to dilute or confuse a need versus a want. A lot of times, even my daughters, we've talked about how important words are. And a lot of times people say, I need that purse, or I need whatever, fill in the blank, right? And in most cases, it's not a need. I'd say probably 98% of the time it's not a need. It's usually a want. And so I always tell my daughters, like, hey, let's try that again. How are you going to ask that? Or how are you going to say that? And I'm like, oh, okay, Mom, I want this. And so I think it's a good thing in your mind to shift that, because I think a lot of times, and I'm not trying to generalize toward females, but a lot of times, since I'm around females a lot, females tend to say those types of things, like, I really need something in particular, and it's usually some sort of fashion that'll, up their game, purses, sunglasses, shirts, whatever you want to call it, right? Shoes. And so that's great if you want to spend your money on those things. But in the beginning, we didn't spend any money. It was like I had 2 pairs of jeans and a couple t-shirts and like a pair of sneakers. And yes, that sounds horrible, but like every little dollar was important. And so it had a category. Every little dollar had a place. And so there were certain times where that dollar did not have a place going shopping. And that was just a sacrifice that we made. And to be honest, like it sounded like a lot when you're in it, but now looking back, like it's 100% worth it to do that. I mean, like Brett said, it took about 7-8 years for us to get to that financial freedom. And the only way we got to that was by saying no to going to parties, saying no to going on vacations with certain people, only cooking at home and doing the things that aren't quote unquote sexy, right? Like aren't quote unquote fun. But now we're able to do those fun things because we did make that sacrifice in the beginning. So a lot of times, ladies, you don't really need the nails, you don't need the Starbucks, you don't need all these things, right? That we kind of lie to ourselves and say that we do need them. You really do just want them. And I guess, do you want that thing or do you want financial freedom? Is really the question that you have to answer yourself.
As we're talking about this, ladies are not the only ones guilty of these kind of things.
100%, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Men have their habits.
Yeah.
Man, beer, can we just call out beer?
Yeah.
Man, if you start tracking going to the bar or going to restaurants or eating out, that was the most embarrassing thing for Laura and myself when we started budgeting for the first time and realizing how much money we were spending out at restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And then back in the day, we were waiting tables, and I was a sommelier at some fine dining restaurants. And so wine was very important to us.
Yep.
Man, we were spending like 25% of our income on wine.
Gross.
It was
So ridiculous.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like we were spending more on alcohol than on like car and insurance and stuff. It was like, this does not seem proportionate. We might have a problem here. So, man, there is definitely some getting on the same page with your spouse and almost some like laughable moments like, oh my gosh, we really spend this much money on these kind of things. And it goes back to, what are the BS? What are the things that you can cut? And if we're going to kind of put things into a simple budgeting kind of a way here and say, hey, you know what, 50% of our income should be towards our needs, then if you look at what I show here in green, I'm going to split needs into 2 different categories. Fixed needs, so fixed expenses, meaning things you can't change, right? Your rent, your mortgage is the same every month. Maybe your bills are fixed bills every single month. This is your insurance and those kind of things. So it actually makes it really easy to go through, here are my fixed bills, I can handle those, and then I have my variable needs, right? Variable things might be utilities. It might be food, right? For us, we had all these alcohol stuff in our food budget. It's like, well, that's not really the appropriate place for that, right? That's variable. We can definitely cut that stuff back, right? We didn't start eating all these fancy things and all that kind of stuff. We cut back and we cooked everything at home. So food is a need, but filet at a steakhouse doesn't have to be, right? You could be, chicken and broccoli at home or whatever that looks like. So play with those things, right? Get roughly 50% of your income into some of these needs. And then the wants, right? Honestly, in my mind, there's your wants and then there's just waste, right? There's clearly things that are just hardcore wasteful. So go through those and really just split those in half. What are the things that I want? I want new clothes. I want vacations. I want play money. I want to be able to order things on Amazon. But what's reasonable? And if you say, hey, you know what? I want to have a budget of 30% of my income, and I'm going to go through my wants, categorize them and see, okay, well, these are definitely fitting within my 30%, but these over here, this is waste, right? For us, this may be, for people, a great chance to kick your bad habits, right? Cut the cigarettes, cut the booze,
alcohol, yes.
right? If you're a lady, stop spending the $80 a month on the nails, all of that kind of stuff, right? Like, man, cut your own hair. You can make it work, right? We all did it during COVID.
Yeah, I've said this so many times, so many calls. If you're female and you are complaining about money, that you don't have money, and you have nails that look perfect, and I know that you go to the nail salon, I'm like, girl, don't even talk to me right now. Like, you got some habits you got to cut. And I know that people don't like hearing that, and that's just the truth of the matter. Alcohol, it is not a need. It is 100% a want. Some people literally think they need it, and no, you don't need it. It's actually killing you from the inside. And I can go on and rant on all that, but it is not something you need. And so that's something we have cut from our budget, and it has saved us so much money. I can't even tell you. Even just going out and not drinking, it's a lot of money. And so I think that it was an eye opener once we did stop drinking, how much money we're saving just by cutting that.
So here's your action steps for today, right? After you've gone through, built out an app, got your budget in there, I want you to go through and cut 20%. That's the goal, 20%, cutting right out of your income. Because honestly, like that now becomes, you got your 100% of your income. If you cut 20% of this waste, man, you automatically just saved 20% of your income. That's epic. Most people save 3.5%, right? And they save it for a rainy days fund. Then they go and they spend it on new tires. That's not save to invest. I understand that 20% is a bit hard and a bit aggressive. I'm an aggressive kind of guy, and I want to hit financial freedom now, like as soon as possible. So if you're like me and you are impatient, cut. So perhaps it's 10%, right? At least go through and say, what is bullcrap in my budget? What is waste? And these are actually just like bad habits, right? I should not be spending that. At least go through and hit 10. And then over the next 30, 60 days, cut an additional 10%. Think of it from this perspective. What if your boss said our company is struggling, and in order to save the company, everyone in the company needs to take a 20% pay cut? Sorry, this just has to happen, right? We're taking your pay and just cutting it by 20%. That's essentially what we're talking about here, right? You're forcing yourself to save. It's the same thing as lowering your income. You could do that, right? If things got really horrible, we went into recession, and if that was the motivation, you'd be like, yeah, I could do it for sure. I know I could. But in a normal circumstance, people are like, I can't do that. I can't cut 20%. No, you actually could. It's really, what is your priority? Do you want to drink the Starbucks and eat out at McDonald's, or do you want to retire early and maybe be able to retire your parents, right? Perhaps they are not financially in a good place, and you know that you're going to have to take care of them, right? What does it look like for you? Do you want to retire at 50 and then retire your parents, or do you want to keep living a life that's average? And that's kind of the harsh truth of it, right? Like, most people aren't going to do this. Who are you? What kind of person are you going to be? And that's totally up to your motivation. We wanted to do something special. We wanted to set an example for our kids. And honestly, this is where this started. We had kids, and we're like, man, we don't have our crap together. We don't have a bunch of areas of our life crap together. And one of them was finances. And we got on this path. We had the hard meeting together lots of times, and we said, we are committing to do this together. We are going to make this work. It is going to suck. It still sucks, right? We still live on a budget.
Yeah.
It's a much bigger budget, but nonetheless, like, there's still a budget there.
Yeah. You have to have the hard conversations, and I think one of those hard conversations is money. Another one is sex, one thing that we talk about a lot as well. And I think it's just the first 5 to 10 times you have these conversations, it's really uncomfortable and you don't want to talk about it. But it's one of those things where if you want to make a change, it's necessary.
Yeah. So, kind of wrapping up today, I really, really like this analogy. Laura and I, avid football watchers, and if you follow football, at least the principles of it, you know that you have multiple teams on your football team, right? You literally have your offensive team, you have a defensive team, you have a special teams. And I think that analogy works so well for finances, because today we're talking about budgeting, and that's like your defensive team, right? You got the big guys out there, they're blocking, they're doing all of those kind of things. That's what we're talking about. It is totally different than the guys that are running backs and can do the cartwheels on the field and catch the ball with like 3 fingers, right? They are different people. They are different skill sets. There are literally different playbooks for these kind of things. And so a lot of people think that finance and budgeting and investing is all one playbook. It's really not. We're going to have different strategies and different times when different teams are on the field. Right now, when we're getting started, your defensive team is on the field. You don't need to focus on investing yet. That is not the time. This is about defense. This is about setting our foundation. And that's a different playbook, right? As we build on this and get money together, then it becomes about offense. Our offensive team is about increasing your income. Both are super important. You want to lower your expenses to a reasonable amount and hold there, right? Your defense team is going to keep doing its job and holding. Then you're going to put most of your effort, your energy, everything into offense. You could double your income next year. There's nobody stopping you from doing that. You could double it again the following year and the following year and the following year. There is not a limit to how much money you can make. You could literally go from 100 to 200, 200 to 400, 400 to 800. You can only cut your budget in half a couple times, right? Like, you cannot save your way to becoming a multi-millionaire. You just need to get your defensive team set, create a good strategy for you, and then maintain. Reasonable budget. We're not talking about living on rice and beans. I want you to be hugely successful, hugely rich, but part of that is having a reasonable defensive team. You could make millions of dollars, but there are plenty of people who make millions of dollars and spend millions of dollars every year, right? It goes back to their family has zero net profit, right? They have no profit in their family business, even though they have high income. They also have high expenses. So 2 different teams here, right? We're gonna talk about defense for your budget. Offense is increasing your income. And the third is special teams. That's gonna be investing. So with that kind of analogy, we're gonna be building on these different strategies, but just know that next week is some of the good stuff. We are getting past the kind of feeling of budgeting and moving into increasing our income.
Awesome. Well, we have a couple questions. One of them is funny, but this one is serious. What was the single biggest mindset shift that took you from trading time for money to building true passive income?
Man, there has been several. And I literally feel like every couple years, I feel like my mind like expands another level and I think bigger. And I remember the first time being in our living room and saying to Laura after I had gone through a compound interest calculator for the first time. And if you've never played with a compound interest calculator, you have to do it as your homework. Just put in something small. Like, I'm going to save $500 a month, and it's going to add an additional $500 a month, say 12% interest, and give it 30 years. And it's like the first time I did that, because we were scrimping by, we were saving $500, and I looked at Laura, I'm like, babe, we were, I don't know, 30, 28. Babe, if we did this till 65, and I don't remember the math right now, it was multiple millions. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could be multiple millionaires just by saving $500 a month and investing that and having a compound. Like, whoa. Since then, our financial understanding has expanded many, many times since then. But man, having that first one, realizing that you are worthy of it, that it is possible for you. If you live in America, it's possible for everybody, right? Like, there's nothing stopping you down from putting $500 a month and investing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's foundational. Let's just get your crap together and stop spending so much money at Starbucks.
True. I think mine was literally reading Rich Dad Poor Dad from Robert Kiyosaki and realizing that I could make money in my sleep. That money should be working for you. You shouldn't be working for money. And I did not fully understand that. That didn't make much sense to me. I didn't even know that you could do that. I thought you always had to work in order to get money. And so I think that was probably the biggest thing for me, was that no, like, literally your money can have little babies and multiply and work for you. So that was, I think for me, that was the biggest mind shift for me toward money. Another thing I would add, and this is always something that kind of makes people upset, but I say it because it made me upset, and I think that was kind of a trajectory for me to make a change, is that if you stay where you're at, if you stay with spending all of the savings that you have and not hitting that financial freedom, you are actually selfish. You are only looking internal at you and your own family, and you're not looking externally. You're not looking up to the opportunity that you can help so many people when you have that financial freedom. Financial freedom is not about, what is it, the Mr. Ducksworth, where he's like diving in like the big old thing of coins. It's not about that. It's not about, making it rain or whatever it is. For us, it's about how many people can we potentially help with this money. Because I mean, when we die, it's not coming with us. So what can we do with it while we're here on earth? And so if you feel like, no, that's not for me, financial freedom's not for me, I say back to you that you're being selfish, and you're only thinking about yourself. And again, I know that's hard to hear. That was something that someone told me, and I was pissed off when they told me that. But it actually made a change in my life, and it really pushed me toward looking up and out for my community and who I can help. And if I had this knowledge of financial freedom, why was I not utilizing it and capitalizing on it? And so, yeah, do an internal audit on yourself. If that is something that really pisses you off, good. I'm glad it did. I'm glad it does, because I think that that's where you really will start making a change and taking action toward financial freedom for yourself. All right, another question. Alex asked, how often do you water your plants on the tree wall? Alex, you know, we're budgeting on water on utilities, so we stopped watering this a long time ago. Next question is, when it comes to budgeting, how would you clearly define a want versus waste?
I think you just kind of know. You may not know if you just looked at one individual item, but if you looked at all of your things and you set aside first, here's the needs, I have to spend this money. Then everything else either has to be a want, it's all really a want. And then some of those things are productive, and some of those things are bad habits or inefficient. I think that you can kind of take anything. If the principle is you have to save 20%, then man, find 20% of those wants and call them waste.
This is a good question. I like this question. This is the last question we have. If you had to start over today with no capital, what would be your first move toward financial freedom?
Man, it all starts first between the ears, right? Like, so many people don't hit their goals, whether it's finance or physical fitness or any of these things, because they don't believe they're worthy of it. I think that you have to know that you are worthy of this, and that, man, God created you to do something special, and it becomes less about you. Maybe it's the motivation of your children, maybe it's the motivation of your parents, maybe you hate your job so much that it's like, okay, I have to make this commitment. But I think that you need to know it, at least in baby steps, right? Because it's not going to be like a light switch and like, I am worthy of having $100 million net worth. But are you worthy of having a good retirement? Once you believe in yourself, then it makes sense to start investing in yourself first, right? And that's books, and that's podcasts, that's listening to our show. There's so many different things. You wash that over yourself, over your mind, and you literally almost brainwash yourself. And I really mean that. That the more you put over yourself in podcasts and things like that, you just start believing those things. It's almost like you hang out with bad influences, you become a bad person. It's almost the same thing. You hang out with people who are financially savvy, and that may be actual friends, but it may be books and things like that. You just naturally start doing those things. So that's kind of where I would start, is knowing that you believe these things and then taking action on it. And then all of a sudden, you know that this is just who you are. You are a person that saves. You are a person that's financially responsible. And all of a sudden, it just starts happening.
Yeah, I think the most important asset that you could ever pour into is in yourself. And I don't think a lot of people think of themselves as an asset, but you really are. And so that's what we initially did. We didn't know anything about investing. We didn't know anything about real estate. We didn't know anything. And I think that's where we really started. And it's like Warren Buffett always says, is you invest in what you know. And if you don't know anything, you're probably not going to be investing, right? Like, so I think the first thing is educating yourself, investing in yourself, and then also educating yourself in other avenues of investments, right? And so our avenue of investment initially was real estate. And so we just jumped in. I mean, literally, like, just full blown, like, head first, like, just went toward it. And we still don't know everything. We never will about real estate. And so I think that's also another thing too, is being humble but gracious with yourself along the process, knowing that you're educating yourself and that you're getting to a point where you can start investing into something, but being humble on the process too is also really important, and giving yourself grace, knowing that, hey, I don't know everything. I never will. And it's okay to admit that. There are lots of times people ask me questions and I'm like, I don't know the answer to that question. And I'm okay saying that. I'm confident saying that because who am I to answer a question if I don't know the answer to it, right? Like, it's okay if you don't know everything. And so, again, investing in yourself, that's the best asset that you can invest in. And then just progressing toward learning a specific niche or avenue in where you want to invest in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's all we got.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Great questions, guys. Thanks for those questions.
Awesome. Well, get out there. Just start taking massive action, right? Get a foundational budget together because all the good, fun stuff starts after that. Once you start saving some money, you start learning some niches, you start doing cool things, and then the snowball happens. But don't rob yourself of building that snowball because you don't save the little bit at a time. The little bit becomes a lot over a few years. So it's so important.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool. We're talking about what next week?
We're talking about increasing your income.
Yep.
Making more money. It's the good stuff right there.
Yes, it's going to be a fun conversation. Well, awesome. Well, guys, thanks for joining in. I really hoped you had some golden nuggets you can take and apply it to your personal finances and your family profit. And we will see you next week where we will talk about increasing your income.
All right. Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
All done.